The war-torn lands of Eldoria had finally settled into a somber silence. With the defeat of the Frostfire Chimera, the Obsidian Dragon, and the Dark Life, the immediate threats to the realm had been quelled. The human kingdoms, now basking in the aftermath of their victory, faced a new challenge, mending the fractured alliances and rebuilding a shattered world. The task of making peace with the elves and the dwarves was a daunting one, fraught with tension and distrust. King Alaric, acutely aware of the need for lasting peace, sought to reconcile with the elves and dwarves. He recognized the significance of repairing these relationships not just for political stability, but for the moral integrity of his kingdom. Diplomatic envoys were dispatched to the remnants of the elven and dwarven realms, with offers of treaties, reparations, and joint reconstruction efforts. The elves, having retreated to their high alpine cities of Starspire Heights and Sylvan Glades, were the first to be approached. The elven leaders, still reeling from the devastation and loss, met with human diplomats in a remote glade surrounded by ancient trees. The elves were wary, their trust eroded by years of conflict and the perceived indifference of the human forces to their plight. The dwarves, led by High Thane Bromir, were the next target of human diplomacy. The ironstone halls lay in ruins, and Bromir himself had been grievously injured during the war. With a lost eye and a severed left arm, he bore the physical and emotional scars of the conflict. His bitterness was palpable, and he viewed the human overtures with deep skepticism. The elven negotiations began with cautious optimism. King Alaric proposed a treaty that would ensure the protection of elven lands, the restoration of their sacred sites, and the establishment of a joint council to oversee the realm's recovery. However, the elves were deeply mistrustful. They demanded substantial concessions and assurances, including the complete withdrawal of human forces from their lands and reparations for the environmental damage caused during the war. The humans' inability to meet these demands, coupled with lingering suspicions, led to a standoff. The negotiations with the dwarves were even more fraught. High Thane Bromir, though respectful of the human king's intentions, was unforgiving of the betrayal that led to the loss of the Blackforge hammer. The dwarves demanded not only the return of the hammer, but also significant compensation for the destruction of their cities and the loss of their people. Bromir's anger and sense of betrayal coloured every discussion, and his insistence on justice overshadowed any possibility of compromise. The elves, despite attempts to engage in dialogue, remained disillusioned with the human efforts. They viewed the peace offers as insufficient and insincere, believing that the humans had not fully grasped the extent of the damage inflicted upon their lands. The refusal of the elves to return to the negotiating table marked the failure of human attempts to secure a lasting peace with their ancient allies. Bromir's deep-seated resentment proved to be an insurmountable barrier. The humans' promises of reconstruction and compensation were seen as hollow gestures in light of the betrayal and suffering endured by the dwarves. Despite King Alaric's personal efforts to make amends, the dwarves felt that the humans had never truly understood or addressed the gravity of their actions. The continued unrest within the dwarven realms was a constant reminder of the unresolved grievances. The failure of peace talks left Eldoria in a state of uneasy truce. The humans continued to rebuild their lands and consolidate their power, while the elves and dwarves remained isolated and distrusting. The scars of the war ran deep, and the efforts to mend broken bonds fell short of their intended goals. The elves maintained their reclusive stance, focusing on healing their lands and preserving their remaining sanctuaries. The dwarves, though they rebuilt their strongholds, remained wary of human intentions and sought to strengthen their own defences. The sense of betrayal and loss lingered, casting a shadow over any future interactions.
In the twilight of the shattered land, when the dust had settled and peace was planned, legends of yore. Now the war is over, shadows flee. We rebuild what was lost in unity. From the ashes new life springs. In the calm the hope it brings. Songs of peace and healing rise underneath the healing skies. In the quiet of the dawn, we find the strength to carry on. The fields are green where once was fire. The broken hearts mend and spirits inspire. Old wounds are healed with gentle hands as we forge anew across the lands. Now the war is over, shadows flee. We rebuild what was lost in unity. From the ashes new life springs. In the calm the hope it brings. Songs of peace and healing rise underneath the healing skies. In the quiet of the dawn, we find the strength to carry on. The fields of battle fade with time. In the silence a hopeful chime. Where once was strife, now grace and trust. A world reborn from dust to dust. The fires of war have dimmed to light. We gather round in the soft twilight. With hands united, hearts are free. A future bright for all to see. Now the war is over, shadows flee. We rebuild what was lost in unity. From the ashes new life springs. In the calm the hope it brings. Songs of peace and healing rise underneath the healing skies. In the quiet of the dawn, we find the strength to carry on. As the years flow on and stories grow, we remember the past, let the future glow. In the peace that follows, we stand tall. Together we rise from the past's fall.
The aftermath of the Eldorian Klysmós left a profound mark on Eldoria. The landscape, once a canvas of vibrant life and thriving cities, now bore the scars of war. The human kingdoms, elven realms, and dwarven strongholds each faced the daunting task of rebuilding, but the wounds of betrayal and loss were slow to heal. As years passed, the legacy of the Klysmós became more than a mere chapter in history. It shaped the very fabric of the realm's future. King Alaric, though celebrated as a hero, faced the heavy burden of unifying his fractured kingdom. The once bustling cities had been reduced to ruins, and the people were weary from years of conflict. With the dwarves and elves still distrusting, Alaric's efforts to rebuild and bring stability were met with mixed results. His administration worked tirelessly to reconstruct infrastructure, restore trade, and establish new alliances. Yet, despite his intentions, the shadow of betrayal lingered. The elves, having retreated to their mystical enclaves, chose a path of isolation. The devastation of their lands had left them deeply scarred, and their leaders, though wise and venerable, were reluctant to engage with the human realm. Their focus was on healing the natural world and preserving their ancient traditions. The elves constructed great wards around their territories, ensuring that their lands remained untouched by the outside world. The dwarves, under the leadership of High Thane Bromir, undertook a massive reconstruction project within their strongholds. The ironstone halls were slowly rebuilt, but the loss of the Blackforge hammer and the betrayal left a profound mark. Bromir, though a skilled leader, struggled with the weight of his injuries and the bitterness of betrayal. The dwarves fortified their defences and pursued a policy of self-reliance, wary of human intentions. Despite the failed peace talks, there were still attempts at reconciliation. Human emissaries made several journeys to elven and dwarven territories, bearing gifts and offerings of goodwill. They sought to establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and collaborative projects. Yet, each attempt was met with cautious skepticism or outright rejection. The elves and dwarves, while acknowledging the gestures, remained unconvinced of the sincerity behind them. In an effort to bridge the gaps, cultural exchanges were initiated. Festivals celebrating the diverse cultures of Eldoria were organised, and scholars from different races were invited to share knowledge. While these events fostered mutual respect and understanding among some individuals, they did little to address the deep-seated grievances that had emerged from the war. The Eldorian Klysmós had left its mark on the psyche of the realm. The betrayal and destruction had instilled a deep sense of caution among the races. Diplomats and leaders were more guarded, and alliances were formed with a greater emphasis on security and mutual benefit. The memory of the Klysmós served as a constant reminder of the fragility of peace. In response to the lessons learned from the war, educational reforms were introduced across Eldoria. Schools and institutions began to teach the history of the Klysmós as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the importance of trust, diplomacy, and the consequences of betrayal. The hope was that future generations would learn from the past and strive for a more harmonious coexistence. Monuments and memorials were erected to honor those who had fallen during the war. These structures served as both a tribute to the dead and a reminder of the cost of conflict. They were placed in key locations across Eldoria, symbolizing the commitment to remember the past while striving for a better future. The Eldorian Klysmós became more than a historical event. It became a symbol of the high cost of conflict and the complexities of trust. The stories of betrayal, heroism, and struggle were passed down through generations, shaping the collective memory of Eldoria. It served as a reminder of the need for vigilance and the value of unity. Though true reconciliation remained elusive, the Klysmós inspired a renewed focus on diplomacy. The legacy of the war highlighted the importance of addressing grievances, fostering dialogue, and working towards lasting peace. It became a call to action for leaders and citizens alike to prioritize understanding and cooperation over conflict.
In the depths where the darkness lies, from the ashes a new shadow flies. What was thought defeated now returns. With a vengeance the cold fire burns. Shadows reborn from the darkest night, rising again in the flickering light. Through the mists and the twilight's roar, we face the darkness once more. Echoes of the past they call. In the shadows we stand tall. With the rising of the night, we prepare for the coming fight. The dragon's roar shakes the land anew. A storm of rage in the sky's dark hue. Undead knights and ogres stride from the gloom where the dark forces bide. Shadows reborn from the darkest night, rising again in the flickering light. Through the mists and the twilight's roar, we face the darkness once more. Echoes of the past they call. In the shadows we stand tall. With the rising of the night, we prepare for the coming fight. The canyons roam with a chilling might. Through the frost and the flames of the night, in the cold and the fire they come. An army of darkness they drum. In the heart of the coming storm, a spark of courage will transform. The shadows may rise, but we won't fall, for light can pierce through the darkest pall. Echoes of the past they call, in the shadows we stand tall. With the rising of the night, we prepare for the coming fight. In the face of the shadows' embrace, we find our strength, our final grace. For as long as the dark shadows loom, we rise with light to chase the gloom.
If you're enjoying the story of Eldoria, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated.